Hey everybody, welcome to Culinary Characters Unlocked. I'm David Page. On this episode, she's the chef and co-owner of a couple of unpretentious Eastern Mediterranean restaurants in Burlington, Vermont. Now, she and her business partner have been named finalists for the 2025 James Beard Award for America's Outstanding Restaurateur. Here's Cara Tobin. Chef, thanks for joining me. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Congratulations on the James Beard nomination. The outstanding restaurateur in the whole country. That's quite something.
It's really, I was shocked, to be honest, like really shocked. So yeah, it's awesome. But yeah, I was not expecting it.
And then you get a phone call? How's it go?
Well, the list comes out, and the funny thing was I immediately checked like the regional chef list, and I was like, oh, bummer. Like I didn't make the list.
Because you'd been nominated there before.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I checked that list first and then was like, oh, all right, well, that's okay. And then I think someone pointed it out to me. Like I didn't even see it right away. And was like, oh, I guess I am a restaurateur. That's what was funny about it was that I've never...
Well, you own two restaurants.
I know, but I'm just like, I'm a chef. I don't know. I cook on the line. Like, that's what I do. I also happen to run the restaurants, but yeah, it was shocking.
You cook on the line routinely?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Did you always want to be a chef? Was this in your blood early on?
I would say no. And that I definitely didn't set out to be a chef. Food was always part of my family. Growing up, my family is Italian, and then my grandparents on my father's side were from the South. So it was like European, Italian hospitality meets like Southern hospitality. And there were, big to-dos around the holidays. My grandmother was always in the kitchen. She would get fresh black-eyed peas from the commissary, and I would sit at the table and help her shuck them. But I just thought that was what people did. I didn't really think anything of it, but I knew that I loved food. I definitely knew that. And then when I was 17, I just needed a job. So I went into this local restaurant, and I thought I would ask to be a server. And the chef was standing there, and he said, like at the front desk, and he said, "Can you cook?" And I lied. I said, yes. And he said, all right, come back at 5. However long ago, so 25 years ago.
When you started cooking, was it obvious you didn't know how?
I don't know. Probably. They probably saw that I had no idea what I was doing, but for some reason it felt very natural to me. And it was a pizza place where everything is like, it's like boom, 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 you do these things. It wasn't very technical. It was more about getting it out fast. And so I just kind of did what I'm pretty good at like mimicking, and like you show me once and I got it. So I just kind of like slipped right into it, I guess. They might say something totally different, but
we won't fact check. How's that?
Great.
I read that you learned how to be fast. Mm-hmm. And I get the sense from reading other interviews with you that there's something about just keep on moving at the center of your cooking. Were you always like that?
I think so. I know that I have a tendency that if I sit down, I'm down. So the way my strategy for sort of doing everything is to just keep moving. And I know that that's the only way I'm going to get it done. Because if I sit down, I'm done. That's it.
So you go to college and you work in some restaurants while you're in college?
So I did a semester of college, and I realized that was not what I wanted. I'm more of a hands-on person. I was going to be an art major. I wanted to do something that was artistic, because if I can use my hands and create, that was the best way to sort of do what I wanted to do. And it's just kind of how I operate. So I thought that's what I thought I was going to do. So I started going to college because that's what you're supposed to do. And I was working in restaurants the whole time. And there was a point actually where I thought, I can't do this forever. I mean, this is hard. Late nights, and it's hot, and it's hard work. Of course, I'm not going to do this forever. And I took a year off. I was living in Santa Cruz. And I was working at this naturopathic doctor's office. And someone had some sort of illness or something. She would put people on these restricted diets. This one patient who came in, he was probably 60s, 70s, living alone. He mostly ate pizza and, takeout. And she said, you can't eat gluten dairy, sugar, soy, and I think there were a couple other things. And I will never forget him walking out of her office and looking at me and saying, "What am I going to eat? That's what I eat. That's everything." And I was like, let me help you out. Like, I'll come to your house a couple days a week and I'll make you some food that follows these restrictions. I'll pack your fridge, I'll pack your freezer. And so I started doing that. And I realized, A, how much I missed cooking. And B, seeing the appreciation and just the relief and the joy that he had in having food that he could eat. I thought, man, I love that. I made this guy food that made him so excited. And that was it. I was like, no, I got to go back.
So you went to culinary school, right?
Yeah, I had a conversation with my husband. I was like, I think this is what I want to do. And he's an academic. So for him, it's like, you go to school. If you want to be good at something, you go to school. So I was like, okay. And he said, if you want to be good at this, you got to go to culinary school. You got to learn how to do these things. It's a skill. It's a trade. And so I applied to the CCA, the California Culinary Academy in San Francisco. I got in, but it was so expensive. So I decided not to go. And I remember being devastated. But then I found this little school in Monterey, California, that's not there anymore. But I signed up for their program. It was a year long and it was awesome. It changed everything.
And you graduated at the top of your class, right?
I did.
How did it change everything?
It showed me that this was a skill, that this was a trade and a craft. I think that's the thing. This cooking is a craft and it's something to be taken seriously. I think that people get really caught up in, we can do anything, anytime, whenever we want and however we want. And I think being able to become really good at something, to take your time and learn the skill, the craft of cooking is really important. And so being there and taking your time and spending 2 weeks on just how to properly cook eggs was like, okay, let's really figure this out and learn how to do it. Did I learn exactly how to cook eggs properly in 2 weeks? No, it's still, to this day, I think about it when I cook eggs. Like, am I getting it right? Should I, adjusting things? But it was that mind switch of like, this is a craft that I need to work on and I will work on for the rest of my life.
So what'd you do after culinary school?
I got a job. Well, I had jobs even during school. I can remember going to school all day and then working all night and then sleeping for a couple hours and going back to school. I just kept working in kitchens. It's like I just didn't really stop. So there was not really a big change. But I went to work for one of the chefs that was one of the teachers at the school. He went on to work at a place in Monterey, or I guess it was in Seaside, but I went to work for him for a little while, which then actually I went to work for him again in San Francisco at the Plum Jack Cafe. I just kept working. That's kind of all I do. I just work.
Back in a moment. You worked your way up to what? Sous chef, executive chef?
Plum Jack, I was the sous chef. So that was 2008 was the last time that I worked there. I think I started 2006, 2007, I forget. I was at Plum Jack in 2008 when the stock market crashed. And I can remember the restaurant just going from like 100 to 0 in a matter of 3 months. I was the sous chef there when they closed and then went on to a couple other jobs in that time while the restaurant industry was sort of like digging out of what was happening. So then I was working at a hotel in Santa Cruz. My husband was at school at UC Santa Cruz. I was the executive chef at a hotel called the Dream Inn, and he got into Harvard. So I was like, I guess you have to go because it's Harvard.
For grad school?
Yeah, he has his PhD in neuroscience.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're looking for a cooking job all of a sudden in Boston.
The funny story about that was that we actually had been engaged for many years, but we decided to get married that winter in California before we moved away. So we got married in April. It was a Friday, April 16th. And then Monday, I flew to Boston to stage at a restaurant. And I remember someone asking me at the restaurant I was staging at, they said, "Oh, how long have you been married?" And I said, 3 days. And they were like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "It's like, shouldn't you be on a honeymoon?" And I'm like, "Well, I got to find a job." So we moved that summer after we got married to Boston so that he could start in the fall. And I started looking for jobs earlier in the spring. And then at some point that summer, I staged at Oleana in Cambridge, and I just fell in love with it.
It's a Mediterranean restaurant, a Turkish restaurant?
It's Eastern Mediterranean. The chef, Anna Sortun, her focus is Eastern Mediterranean, a lot of Turkish influence. So I started working there in, I think, August of 2010. And I had done Mediterranean food before. Again, like my family was Italian, and living in California, you just sort of eat that way anyway. So that style was not unfamiliar to me, but the Eastern Mediterranean, the Middle Eastern products were really new to me. She taught me so much.
This obviously was a pivotal moment in your evolution as a chef. What is it about this kind of food that just connected with you?
It's a style of eating, family style, lots of small plates, trying little things, a lot of different things. The vegetable, it's like very vegetable based, which was, how I kind of grew up eating, because in California, we had access to vegetables all the time. Not that you don't in other places, but you know what I mean. In California, the growing season is all the time. The more that I learned about it, the thing that really connected for me was the pride in, again, learning how to do things really well. I'll never forget the first time I was in Turkey, I think it was 2012. We flew pretty immediately to Gaziantep, which is in the south of Turkey. We went to this lahmacun shop. Lahmacun is like very loosely a Turkish pizza. It's a flatbread with topping on it. These shops were run by folks who, a guy who had learned from his father, who had learned from his grandfather, who had learned from his grandfather. And they made the bread. You would bring in your topping for this lahmacun and you would hand it over. They would roll them out, bake them, stack them, package them up, and you'd come pick them up later. And this is what they did all day, every day. And I thought, man, they're just getting so good at this one thing. And that's that thing that I love, is just that pride in doing something so well. And there were a lot of examples like that. And I just thought, this is so cool. And I love the community aspect of it, the craft of it, everything about it. I just loved.
You made a number of trips to that region, did you not?
Yeah. I mean, a couple to Turkey, and then I've been to Lebanon. The olive oil that we use at the restaurants is Lebanese, and the guy that makes it, that owns the company, is a dear friend of mine. His name's Shafiq, and he took me to Lebanon to show me the olives, the olive groves, I guess, and show me the whole process. And I stayed with this family, and I said, I have this list of recipes that I'd love to see. And so he set me up with a woman who was a local chef. And I just he had handed her the list ahead of time, and she got everything together, and she ran through each recipe with me and showed me from start to finish how each one went. And that's kind of how I approach the food at this point, I think.
What kind of dishes?
One of them was called samakara, which is, it's like a spicy fish and tahini dish. And I had it made by other people in the United States, but I really wanted to see how it was done there. And so watching her cook the tahini sauce to a certain point where, you cook tahini and it breaks. At some point, a chef here would be like, oh no, like the sauce is broken. And she's like, just let it keep going. Be patient. Then it comes back together. The oil in the sauce starts to like reincorporate. Then she poached the fish in it, waiting till the sauce was the right temperature, and then poaching the fish just long enough. And then it's a super simple dish. So it's like, you just got to get those couple things right, but it's about doing it right. That was one of the dishes that I was really excited to see.
When did you move on to open your own place?
We always knew that, my husband was going to graduate at some point, and he's from Vermont. And so we kind of thought at some point, well, we might move there. His family's here. We had our first child in 2015. I left Oleana in 2016 to move up north so that we could be near family. But one of the reasons that really made us commit to Vermont was a lot of the products we were getting in Boston were from Vermont. Chicken, quail, lamb, dairy products, some specialty goods. Like there were things that we were getting from Vermont. And I'm like, why don't I just go up there to reduce the carbon footprint and do this up there? We came up a lot, and I didn't really see anyone doing food the way that I would do food. Obviously there's, people doing Eastern Mediterranean or Middle Eastern food, but a restaurant that I imagined was not here. So it seemed like a good idea.
And you opened Honey Road.
I did.
Explain the name.
There's two stories to this. The fun one is that I was really into the Beatles in the moment. I was having this like renaissance with the Beatles, and I thought Honey Road kind of sounded like a Beatles cover band. So
there's also a more Middle Eastern story.
So this is the better story. In Turkey, in the northeast of Turkey, there's a town called Kars, Kars. I'm sure it's pronounced differently. At some point, I haven't really found exactly the moment in time when this happened, but the story is that there's this little village where the primary focus of this village and how everyone made their money was beekeeping, honey making. At one point, all the men in the village went off to war, and all these women were left in this village to fend for themselves. And they thought, well, now what are we going to do? Our husbands, our brothers, our dads, or whatever, they're all gone. And they were the ones that were running these businesses. And they thought, wait a second, we know how to do this. We've been watching it forever. We know exactly what's happening. So they took over all of the honey production in this village, revived the village financially. And the village was so tiny that it was all on this one road that people would sometimes refer to as the honey road. And I thought, man, how two women, myself and my business partner, who's a woman, we opened this restaurant in a town where there weren't a lot of women running restaurants, and in an industry where there aren't a ton of women running restaurants. And what a perfect story. What a perfect idea. So it kind of fit into two of my criteria for a name.
So you open up in Burlington, Vermont, not a hotbed of Eastern Mediterranean cooking.
Yeah.
Did you expect it would be a hard road?
Yes, I knew that it was going to be a little bit of a lift. The learning curve for folks might take a minute. You know, we put a glossary on the menu so that I could use words that were true traditional words and accurate words.
For ingredients or dishes?
For ingredients or dishes, yep. I love the idea of like teaching along with eating. If you go out and you unexpectedly learn something, it's an experience that you're not going to forget.
We'll be right back.
One of the things that happened to me while I was traveling in Turkey and Lebanon and Morocco was that I was meeting these women who were mothers, grandmothers, who were saying to me, our recipes are being lost. They're not written down. And the way that we've always passed them on was to teach in the kitchen, working alongside our daughters and granddaughters. And that's happening less and less as women are going into the workforce. They're just not cooking as much at home. The modern day woman was a lot different than what they had done when they were young, which is not a bad thing by any means, but they were just saying that we are concerned that our recipes are going to be lost. And so they were so willing to teach me these recipes and these ideas, just knowing that like someone was going to know that they were happening and continuing on. And so as someone who cooks in this way, who cooks with these ingredients, cooks Eastern Mediterranean food, I want to help with that. And I think it's really important to teach people just new things and new ingredients and new ways to eat and new ideas about food and new dishes. And so I don't want to like dumb things down for people. I still might not use the exact term or the traditional word for things, but I try to whenever I can and whenever it makes sense so that people can really learn something. And
apparently you're kind of an instant smash hit.
Yeah, it's kind of like crazy. I say this all the time. We got really lucky. We got lucky. And people say, well, it wasn't luck, you have hard work, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, sure. We did. We worked really hard to create something that was really amazing. But I do think that there was a moment of luck too. We opened at the right time in the right place. The location was amazing. The town was just like ready for it. So not to like downplay all of our hard work, but I do think that it was a moment in time that it just seemed to everything just clicked. It was really incredible to watch. To be honest.
What do you serve?
So Honey Road is dinner only, small plates, shareable plates.
What's called a mezza or a meze?
Meze, yep, exactly. We use local ingredients as much as we possibly can. So my sort of idea is that I take all of the local things that, everybody's using, like local vegetables, proteins, dairy, all of that stuff. And then I mix it with these specialty ingredients, lots of spices, pomegranate molasses, tahini, rose water, those ingredients to make this sort of like hybrid farm to table Eastern Mediterranean food.
Tell me about some of the dishes. You make quail? What do you do with quail?
Yeah, sometimes we have quail on the menu. So one of the things that I've done with quail is sort of my play on chicken and waffles, but it was a local quail, comes from Cavendish, Vermont. Barbecued quail, and then instead of a waffle, I do a rice cake waffle because crispy rice is, in Persian cuisine, like that crispy rice that you get on the bottom of the pot is really well known. And so doing a crispy white rice waffle with barbecued local quail, that was a really popular item on the menu. And then I do a lot of traditional stuff. I do hummus. I do mahamra, which is the walnut and red pepper spread. I do a baba ganoush. I add a lot of brown butter to it to sort of elevate it a little bit. And then one of our most famous things is our chicken wings, which is a funny dish to me because it was one of the first dishes that I put on the menu because I love chicken wings, like love. chicken wings. And I love spicy chicken wings specifically. And so I came up with this recipe for this brown sugar harissa chicken wing that is basically making a brown sugar caramel, and then adding harissa and spices, a lot of Marash chili. So it's like sweet and spicy. And to me, it's our gateway dish. So people that may be a little hesitant about, the flavors that we have on the menu, everybody loves chicken wings. So they get the chicken wings and then they're in.
You make your own pita.
We do, yeah.
You go to Mediterranean restaurants in supposedly sophisticated places like New York. The dips come out and they're served with an industrial circle of cardboard passing itself off as pita.
Yeah.
Is it hard to make your own?
It's a lot of work. We have a baking and pastry department, and they make the dough every day. They make it into the balls, and then we hand roll it and bake it to order.
So I put in my order for my meal, and that's when you roll out this bowl of dough.
Yep.
Oh my God, that must be fantastic.
It's so good. So we have this really old, it's like, I don't know, it's like a 1940s Blodgett pizza oven that we got specifically because it fits the space of the kitchen. Like, you can't find the size anymore. You can't find this oven anymore. We have a lot of trouble with it because it's so old. There's been times during, in the history of the restaurant where I'm like, that's it. We're not doing this anymore. Like, I hate this oven. We're getting rid of it. We're not doing pita. And and I'm like, I know, I would never not do pita. It's so good. Like, you smell it from the kitchen. Like, it comes to the table, it's steaming hot. You pull it open, it's like the steam comes out. It's soft, it's pillowy, it's so good.
You got included in 2023. The New York Times published a list of the 23 top American dishes of the year, and one of yours was included. Tell me about it.
That was actually a dish that was created by the chef de cuisine at the time. He's actually gone on to open his own restaurant now. That was one of his brainchilds of his background. His mother's from Syria, and I think this was a dish that really brought back flavors from his childhood. So I was really excited for him. It was a fish crime. So crime is like a tomato, sort of red pepper sauce stew situation that's usually the fish is baked in. So it was his play on that. And then he added some elements of his Jewish heritage to sort of bring that dish to another place. He was adding like beets to it and some other vegetables that felt very appropriate for him.
Do you have a favorite item on the menu?
The chicken wings. Pretty much every time I'm in the kitchen, I have an order of chicken wings, which is not great for my waistline, eating chicken wings every day.
It's research. Looking at your dessert menu.
Yeah.
What's the tahini sundae?
So the tahini sundae was actually something that I thought of before I even moved up here.
Tahini is a sesame paste, right?
Yeah. I knew I wanted a tahini sundae on the menu. I wanted this ultimate tahini experience. So it's house-made tahini ice cream. It's a halva caramel, and then it gets crumbled halva on top, or a fairy floss that's like a halva candy.
Halva being a tahini-based dessert of its own.
Yeah, I put tahini on everything. It's so good.
Okay, so you've opened this place. It's a raging success, and you feel a need to open a companion restaurant?
Yeah. So during the first few years of Honey Road, we were doing these brunches on the weekends. Not all the time. We do it like 3 times a year, basically 3 times during the winter, just for something fun, because winter can be so hard here in Vermont. So we were like, let's do something fun. Let's do these brunches. So we did that, and they were wildly successful.
At a restaurant that usually is open only for dinner.
Yep. Yeah. And I had dishes that I would think of that were not dinner appropriate. They were clearly brunch, like breakfast, lunch dishes. So it was also an outlet for me to do things that I couldn't do for dinner. And then also 2020 happened. We closed for the pandemic, but we closed on the Monday that they ordered everyone to close. And we reopened that Thursday for takeout. And I basically turned this, not fine dining, but finer dining dinner restaurant into a takeout shawarma shop in 4 days. And we were doing like pita sandwiches, salads, dips to go. And that was pretty successful. So when we started opening back up, I mean, during that time, we did this for a year and a half. And at some point, like my business partner and I looked at each other and we're like, this, there's something here. This is wildly successful. So when we reopened Honey Road, officially back to a dinner place doing what we had previously done, we had in the back of our head, well, this brunch, breakfast, lunch, takeout, shawarma shop thing is there. And it was sort of swirling around in our brains as something that we needed to do. And we were always sort of looking for spaces. I don't know. We were just sort of like, we're kind of good with honey, but that's what we call it, honey. We're kind of good with honey, but if something were to, present itself, like this is what we do. And then it did. We were at the restaurant one day. We were both working, and I think we were just having like a frustrating service. I don't even think either of us were working in that service, but we were there, and we were like, we just both got to like get out of here. Maybe I think we'd been working a lot, and we were like, we just got to get out of the restaurant. Let's just take a walk. So we walked up the street. We head all the way up to the top, and we take, we're like, let's circle around and just, take the long way back. We turn the corner, and immediately there's this building that I don't know how we never saw. And there's a for lease sign in the window. And we're like, what is this? When did this place become available? We've never even noticed this place before. Walked quickly back to the restaurant. I emailed our realtor and I said, what's up with that place? Why haven't you ever shown us that place? And he said, oh, yeah, right. That's a great spot. And we're like, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Realtor.
Yeah, again, why have you never shown us that space? And so the next day we saw it and we fell in love with it. And that was the beginning of the Gray Jay.
The Gray Jay. So it's mostly a breakfast place?
Brunch, yeah. Breakfast, lunch all day.
So what do you serve? What's the Eastern Mediterranean take on breakfast?
Tahini French toast, shakshuka.
Shakshuka's become kind of hip.
Yeah.
It's a form of poached eggs?
There's a couple different ways that I've seen it done. It's eggs baked in a tomato pepper stew. This is a really simple way to describe it. We do it with poached eggs just because it makes it a little faster technically to serve. But we make a stew with peppers, onions, garlic, tomato, spices, pepper paste. We stew all that down to make this, really kind of jammy, peppery stew. And then top it with poached eggs, some crumbled feta cheese, and some herbs and marash, chili flakes.
Sounds fabulous.
Yeah, and then we serve it with a house-made manaish, which is sort of like a focaccia bread, but with lots of olive oil and za'atar on top.
Which you bake.
Oh, yeah.
Your French toast, is it the French toast I'm used to?
Tahini French toast. It's house-made challah bread that we soak in a tahini batter. So tahini that's thinned out with heavy cream and then eggs and cinnamon. We soak it in that and then griddle it, and then it gets topped with a house-made tahini butter, crumbled halva, and some fresh citrus.
Halva is the plutonium of calories and might well be my death row meal.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's incredible. You serve a traditional Turkish breakfast. What is a traditional Turkish breakfast?
Traditionally, it would be like a couple different things. Yogurt, olives, some maybe like sliced cucumber, tomato, vegetable situation. Sometimes pickles. Sometimes there's toast and jam. Sometimes there's simit, which is sort of a bagel type bread that's topped with, you brush it with grape molasses and top it with sesame seeds.
Ooh.
So it can be any combination of those things. Basically, a Turkish breakfast is lots of little things to sort of pick at and eat for breakfast.
You do eggs Benedict there, but you do it differently, right?
Yeah, we do, not all the time, but we sort of started doing it for special occasions, but we do a falafel eggs Benedict. So instead of the English muffin, we do a falafel patty, and then we top that with tahini. So it gets like the falafel, the tahini, a little wilted spinach, the poached egg, hollandaise, and then a lot of fresh dill. That's very popular.
You talk about using local ingredients. You guys raise mushrooms? You and your husband?
Yeah, so my husband, the Harvard neuroscience, he left academia and he started a mushroom farm. He grows different sorts of oyster mushrooms, but one of the passion part of this business is he goes and forages mushrooms here in the woods of Vermont. He brings them back, being the scientist that he is. He gathers the spores from these mushrooms, clones them and then grows them here. The farm is in our basement. So he's growing local varieties of wild mushrooms.
And you're serving them at the restaurants?
Yeah. So actually, one of the dishes that I do a lot is a play on that samakara, that fish poached in tahini that I learned in Lebanon. I do it with mushrooms instead of fish. So it's mushrooms cooked in a tahini sauce and then topped with like a lot of butter and toasted nuts and fresh herbs. So that was a dish that sort of really pulled together a lot of ideas that I had and experiences that I've had. And then this hyper local like mushroom situation. And it's a dish that I get really excited about.
Eastern Mediterranean cuisine. Yes, America knows Middle Eastern food as hummus and shawarma. Do you think there is a growing understanding of the kind of food you're cooking nationally?
I think so. I think there is. I think it's becoming a lot more mainstream. Not long ago, I saw dukkha at Trader Joe's.
Dukkha?
Dukkha is a North African nut and spice sort of topping that they'll put on all sorts of things, fish or vegetables or whatever. And we do one often on the menu that'll be like, toasted hazelnuts with coriander and cumin and cinnamon and sesame seeds. And then that'll get sprinkled on roasted carrots or something.
And you found that at Trader Joe, not the one you make, obviously, but it's available.
No.
At Trader Joe. Yeah.
I think that a lot of these things are becoming a lot more mainstream. Ottolenghi has brought so many of these terms and these dishes.
Who? What? Huh?
Ottolenghi? Oh, man.
Pardon my ignorance.
No, it's okay. His cookbooks really, I mean, when I say what I do, people go, oh, I have one of Ottolenghi's books.
Now I feel tremendously ill-informed.
No. His books are just really great at introducing people to Eastern Mediterranean flavors in a really easy to understand way, I think. And so if someone asks me, recommend a cookbook that would be great for me to learn this stuff, I have a few that are maybe a little more obscure, but the ones that I might point to are like any of his books. So I think that with his books coming out and then, there's chefs around the country who are doing Eastern Mediterranean food, it's definitely becoming a lot more popular, definitely. And I think the younger generations I've noticed, they sort of know a lot more than we did when I was coming up. I remember seeing a recipe for manti, which is a Turkish dumpling, in Saveur magazine when I was probably in my early 20s and thinking, wow, this is so exotic. Now I see it more and more on menus of people who are doing this style of food, and people are getting more used to these ideas. So there are more people who come in and they know what mahamra is. I don't have to explain it as much anymore.
Explain it to me.
It's a walnut red pepper spread. We take walnuts and toast them and then puree them with red peppers like piquillo peppers, red pepper paste, pomegranate molasses, cumin, and you puree it till it's like nice and smooth, but still a little chunky. And it's just like nutty, but savory, a little umami. It's so good, but a little sweet because of the pomegranate molasses.
Plans for the future?
I keep going back and forth. I don't know. I mean, I have a cookbook in my head that I really am trying to work on. I don't know if another restaurant would be, but I say that and then sometimes I'm like, I want 3 more restaurants. I think at this point, my focus is to keep running the 2 restaurants I have in a way that feels really good to me, that I'm taking care of the employees. I'm doing the best that I can for them. I'm being part of the community. I'm giving back to the community. I'm, keeping myself interested in things and doing things that make me, bring me joy. I'm just trying to focus on that right now. But I also have a lot of ideas that we'll see. We'll
look for them down the road.
Yeah.
Chef, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you and chatting with you. Thank you so much for doing this. And congratulations and good luck at the James Beard Awards.
Thank you so much. It's been really a pleasure.
Cara Tobin on Culinary Characters Unlocked. I'm David Page, and I'll see you next time.